Greetings, scholars. Today's presentation is on Cowboys and Homesteaders. Up here we have Little House on the Prairie with Laura Ingalls Wilder, and on the right side is the movie Wild Wild West. I watched it when I was younger, and it was not that great at all. But it's talking about the Wild Wild West, what we're going to be talking about right now, Cowboys and Homesteaders. Alright, this first slide I have up here just to remind the students, remind you guys why there's kind of this push west as well. Remember the gold rush of 1849 and all the gold through the Sierra Nevadas and they're up in the Rockies, etc. And there's a lot of gold, so that's kind of one of the pull factors talking about the westward expansion. Here we have Saudi. When we're talking about homesteaders, talked about a little bit yesterday. These are kind of the sod houses. Here are one of the cowboy trails that we'll talk about a little bit more today. Okay, boom, America's beef binge. Beef becomes America's meat of choice. Initially it was pork, but then after some of the unsound science and trends, it was determined that pork was a dirty meat because it came from pigs, and pigs can't eat anything. They're in pig pens and they're a very dirty animal. So then they put two and two together, thinking that, alright, since the animal's dirty, the meat's going to be dirty as well. So that's kind of unclean meat. Railroad cars begin to there's an invention of the refrigerated railroad car. So now the meat is going to be much more fresh when it goes out east. Yeah. The thing is though, the ranches, they're in Texas. All these cattle, the Longhorn, is in Texas. The railroads are in Kansas. They haven't made it much further west yet. Alright, so the railroads are in Kansas, and the beef binge is out east. That's where the majority of the population. So there has to be a method of getting these cattle from Texas up to the railroads in Kansas so that those railroads can transport that meat out east where the population is. This is where the long drive comes in, okay, with the Chisholm Trail. Okay, long drive is herd thousands of cattle to the railroad centers. Again, we have all of the ranching, okay, the majority of it being in Texas. It has to get up to the railroads, which are in Kansas. So all of these trails are the trails that the cowboys use. They take their cattle on the long drive. Okay, some statistics about cowboys. Believe it or not, roughly 1/5 of them are African American or Mexican. So if you think about all the movies with Clint Eastwood and Bush Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, a lot of the cowboys are just kind of white guys, blonde hair. Yeah, but in reality, 1/5 of them are African American or Mexican. The cowboy's workday is not fun at all. Being a cowboy is a very rough, a very grueling job. They work 18 hours a day. Essentially all they're doing is guiding their herd. A couple in the front of the herd, then they line up the side with more cowboys, and then the back kind of push along as stragglers. Their biggest fear is stampedes, when all the cattle get all riled up and they lose control and they start running every which way. Oftentimes the cowboys would sing, those cowboy songs, Home, Home on the Range. They would sing to these cattle to keep them calm. Okay. The cattle would rather hear the cowboys singing than all the coyotes that are about to eat them. And a leading cause of death, kind of random fact, is being dragged by a horse. So they're not all dying from shootouts and conflicts with these Native Americans. It's being dragged by a horse. And as we learned previously, that the cowboy era comes to an end when people begin to fence off their property. So fences essentially close up the trails, ending the need for cowboy. Switch gears here to the homesteaders. Okay, homesteaders is just a term given to people who utilize the Homestead Act. Okay, a soddy would be their sod house that they have, made out of just earth. They would have some planks and some trees to make some cross beams, but the majority of it is just made out of earth. It's an extremely difficult life. You're always working. The men are going to be farming, the women raise children, they cook, they clean, they work outside with the animals, and the children frequently worked as well. Okay. Right here we have a homesteader with his plow, and this is called sod busting. You bust up that first little layer of sod.